Well, we may be on a physical pause, but this will not stop us from preparing for our comeback, which is why we have invited various members from the global diving community to share valuable inputs, learnings, and strategies. We may be apart, but our common passion will always connect us. We are geared toward facing the year armed with a game plan, and we are ecstatic to start our discussion on strategies to revitalize the dive industry post-COVID-19. Let me introduce our panel for today. Our first guest is originally from Innsbruck, Austria, but for the past 8 years, he has been working as PADI's regional manager for Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, India, Sri Lanka, and the Philippines. Please welcome Andy Auer. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing really, really good. Thank you very much.
I heard you are in Thailand right now.
I'm in Thailand right now. I'm pretty much stuck here. I could not come yet to the Philippines, but I'm looking forward to come really, really soon, hopefully.
Our next guest has been diving since 2003. He is an SSI instructor trainer, free diver, swim teacher, and an avid explorer of caves and wrecks. He spends most of his time diving, doing dive trips, engaging in technical and commercial works, and sharing his passion to other people by teaching diving. Hoping to raise the level of service and professionalism in the diving industry, he spends a lot of time in developing diving professionals. The only time you don't see him underwater is when he spends time taking care of his son, Dax, and wife, Tony. All his remaining free time is squeezed in to be able to volunteer as a firefighter and a rescue technician. Please welcome our guest, Mr. Gorge Gojunko. Gorge, how are you, my
Hello.
friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Good afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, Ralph.
It's really nice to have the two of you in this show, somebody from PADI and somebody from SSI. And we would like to learn from you in this discussion and see how we could help out those people, especially those in this dive industry who are being affected with COVID-19. So our first question, what programs are your organizations implementing to assist stakeholders that are negatively affected by the pandemic?
Thank you very much. This is a really, really good question to start with and puts up, I think, in a good base to bring us in the right mood for this discussion, right? So when the pandemic hit us this year, it was a new land for all of us. It's a new experience, and we had to learn and adapt as any other business Thailand, right? And we were looking at the whole pandemic and what we can do, and we were focusing on two major projects, basically. Number one, how can we keep the lights on even when the doors are closed in the diving business? And number two, how can we keep the diving industry, the diving lifestyle, the environment, and also diving travel in the mind of people who would like to go and take diving courses and our customers, right? So what we have done for our business partners, our members basically, is a few things. We started off with a series of webinars. Year to date, we have done over 500 webinars, and they were visited by over 77,000 members worldwide from us. So this is really, really cool. Parts of those webinars were training related, but a big part was really business related. And specifically, we did a few webinars with the real focus on the pandemic and so on, and how we can make the business a safer environment, which we're going to talk a little bit later on, I guess, right? Then we have also created a COVID map for our dive centers, where each dive center could go in there and mark themselves basically, are they open for business at the moment? Are they open with restrictions, or are they temporarily closed, right? So that gives a good idea to the customers to see, hey, can I travel domestically somewhere? Is this dive shop open, yes or no? Or should I wait a little bit further? We have also adjusted some of our training standards and made it a little bit easier for remote training, also known as e-learning, right? As everybody knows, PADI has revenue share on e-learning. A customer purchases an e-learning course, and the dive shop will get the revenue share. So what we have done, we adjusted training standards and made some courses available, but also did not discount on the revenue share from the dive shops, because we wanted this cash flow going into the dive centers, right? So we promoted PADI e-learning for the customers with the end goal that there is some money going into the dive centers, they can keep their lights on and so on. And then we created some specific courses also, like the EFR Airborne Pathogen Specialty course that teaches really customers, but also the members, of the awareness of what's actually going on here. So that's the member side. And then from the customer side, obviously, PADI has a strong foot into the marketing machine, kind of, we want to call it like this, right? Marketing for us is super, super important. So obviously we launched out social media, and we launched on our websites and so on. We have a lot of publications where we really promoted diving destination travel. We launched the Dive Adventures app. That is an app basically for the mobile phone where people can go around and they can find easily a dive shop, fun diving, diving courses, are they open, are they closed, what's the deal currently there, right? So made it really, really easier for the customers to find out what's going on globally. And then, to be fair, we have launched from our CEO, the Straight Talk from the CEO, where our CEO, Drew Richardson, he sent out emails to all the PADI members every week on a weekly basis, informing them what is going on currently in the PADI world, in the diving industry, and share some good news, because we were also desperate for some good news here. It was so easy to go into that negative trend and so on, and it's really, really bad, and everybody was affected, right? But we were desperate for some good news, and we were sharing that globally also with our members. There is some good news out there. There will be a good outcome on it. And then ultimately, the regional manager team, we had the PADI Call campaign, where we really tried to reach as many members as possible, right? And I know Box received one of the calls as well. That was really cool, which was just chatting about it just before. And that's also cool, right? Yeah, it's desperate times, but pick up the phone, we call each other, right? And say, how are you doing there, right? What's going on, right? And really, really listen of what's happening, and get the feel also on how to move forward in the future. So that's in brief summary of what we have been doing. There's many, many other details there, but pretty much that's how we started addressing this pandemic.
Yeah, this is one of the good sides of the pandemic, Andy. We have time to call and talk to our fellow divers, isn't it? So just to ensure that I got your answer correctly, you were saying that in your organization, PADI, you were implementing programs for the customer side, for the member side, and for the partner side, for the dive operators. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
Yeah. Now, how about in SSI girls? What do you do?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity for us to be able to share the programs that we had. And of course, I would like to applaud PADI's effort. As Andy said, I received that call from PADI early on in the pandemic, checking in on how we are doing, just simple hi, hello. And that gives you a moral boost that the agencies are there. And I've been constantly receiving emails from PADI as well, and try to attend most of their webinars to get informed. And I'm pretty much sure all the other training agencies that is not represented here did something for their members. So my point of view here, I guess that's why I started with that, is because of this pandemic, the whole industry was struck. So it's not PADI's problem alone. It's not SSI. It's not NAWI or any training agency. We are all affected by this. And if we hope to be able to bounce back effectively, it should be an effort by everyone and everyone's help. So for us on SSI side, what we did is the SSI headquarters implemented programs that they shared to service centers, which are basically country-based. And then the service centers are tasked to implement this to their dive centers, which are the resorts and dive shops. And the shops will trickle it down to the dive professionals. And in effect, hopefully we can help the whole industry. So this was the game plan. So part of the program that we launched were some free online programs. The one advantage of SSI is even before the pandemic started, is we were geared towards digital learning. because as everyone knew or might know already, when SSI relaunched and was bought by Head Group of Companies, uh, we invested heavily on all digital programs. So most of our programs are already digital in nature. So uh, SSI headquarters gave Science of Diving. It's basically all the theories and sciences that you need to know about diving, which doesn't require any water time, for free during that period, to allow divers to still be engaged and not forget about diving during the pandemic. And we also launched free equipment techniques. This is about equipment maintenance for those who would purchase Mares gear, because Mares is our sister company, so we work with them really closely. And then we also launched we embedded all our final exam into the online platform so that dive centers could sell courses during the lockdown. One course that is popular during that time was the Enriched Air Nitrox, because as all of us know, there's no additional skill that you need to learn aside from, of course, analyzing the gas that you have in your tank and labeling your tank and be able to set your computer, plus the knowledge and theories involved there. So since the online exam is already embedded in the digital kit, centers can sell this program even during the pandemic and start teaching this course. We also have a lot of school. We also took the advantage of the lockdown that everyone is in their home to do a lot of scuba university webinar series. It's like our business support to our dive centers. Plus, we had a lot of social media campaigns and talks online on different platforms.
We're talking about digital training
Yes.
and spending the pandemic in learning about the modules in digital form.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it loses that interaction between the instructor and the trainer. You know, like in my case, when I started diving in 1996, I learned all from the lectures, but you know, I enjoyed talking and interacting and listening to the experiences of my instructor. How do you think this training in digital form, how can we say that these are still producing, you know, quality scuba divers if they graduate?
Yeah, I agree, totally agree with you, Ralph. When I took my initial course, it was like that as well. I go to class, I meet with the instructor, and he does the lecture by himself. So I'm also a very traditional instructor. So when it all started, I was actually hesitant because I feel like I'm not giving 100% if I'm not in front of my student with a pen and a board behind me and doing the lectures. But once I started to try and adopt the technology, the digital transformation, it actually proved to be effective, and it enabled me to share more insights, because what we actually try and promote for the instructor is not to stop any face to face, but actually to ask the students to read in advance, so that instead of having a one-way lecture mode when you meet, it's going to be like an interaction, because they already have an idea of the topic. So you can now share more of your personal experiences and personal insights rather just reading the lecture. So during the pandemic, what we highly recommended the dive centers to do, and actually I'm still learning, we're adapting. What we're doing now in our dive center is we give the materials in advance, and then we schedule regular Zoom meetings. So Zoom meetings, then we can share our PowerPoint presentation to the screen, and then people could listen. It's just lacking that feel of being face to face, but it's close enough. And then
And the wet clothes, by the way.
yes.
And is it also true with PADI, by the way, Andy? Are we giving the confidence to the people, those who would like to undergo such digital training, that indeed they will learn not only theoretically but also the skills to become a responsible and a good diver?
Absolutely. And I cannot agree more what my colleague just said here, right? I mean, we are from a more traditional, we're coming from a more traditional learning system, right? Where we as an instructor were standing there in the whiteboard and we were talking about pressure, density, the volume, right? And that's all cool. But really, you need to have an instructor who guide you step by step through the whole thing, and explain someone the book that they have already been reading. And what I found with a more open mind, right? The new technology, actually, people learn with an iPad, they learn with a mobile device, whatever. They can read that book by themselves. And we as the diving educators, we have actually much more time now in the water, where we really can focus on the volume, density, and pressure, since we just talked about it, right? But put it into a practical way already. So yeah, we may not stand inside a classroom, but scuba diving, the good part of it is we still have to go in the water in order to learn it, right? So we might not stand in a classroom, we might replace that with an iPad or whatever it might be, but we will still be in the confined water with them and putting into practice and explaining the whole thing one more time just before we actually stick the head under the water and doing it. And that's cool.